Hello everyone! Welcome back to another 2v2 battle. This is with me and Surreal. This time we are both playing as the dwarves, and we are facing off against two Imperial players. You can see some rockets are coming in. My army for this one, actually our armies are kind of almost identical, but we didn't even mean to do it that way. I have a core of Longbeards, 4 of them. We have 2 Thunderers, 2 Miners with blasting charges, 2 groups of Slayers, a Thane, a Master Engineer, a generic Dwarf Lord, a Runesmith, because of course you bring a Runesmith, and a group of hammers right here. We also have 3 cannons for me, 3 cannons for Surreal. Surreal's infantry corps here is, again, also mostly Longbeards. He has 1 group of Ironbreakers, 3 Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, Thorgrim Grudgebearer, which is pretty cool, a Runesmith, 2 Slayers, and these are also just generic Longbeards. Oh yeah, on the side here we have a gyrocopter with a brimstone gun. The Imperial players, you can see 2 Reichsguard over there. We have a, what's it called again? Sunmaker, the renowned Hell Blaster or Hellstorm rocket battery. We have 2 Karl Franz, 1 flying, 1 unmounted in the forest. We have a Bright Wizard flying. We have the Sterling's Revenge, the Free Company Militia. So they are the ones who have armor-piercing rounds instead of normal weapon damage ones. And then the Silver Bullet Handgunner, which they have Stalk, and they do magical attacks. Not sure why you would bring these against a fight with dwarven players. Like, the magical attacks are there to counter physical resistance of, like, banshee units for the vampire counts. Things like that. I guess the dwarves, I mean, they look cool, I guess. Well, I don't, actually, I don't think they look that cool. Anyway, this is an odd choice, I think, against 2 dwarf players. There are, I think, 8 great swords in total, 4 great cannons, and then 6 Blazing Sun Knights hidden in this forest. We can't see them and will not see them for a long time, so we have no idea they are even there. There is that Karl Franz I told you about, and then, yeah, these are just all great swords. It's a lot of anti-armor damage they brought, which is pretty smart against 2 dwarven armies. The thing that doesn't really make sense here for me, let's just slow this. There we go. You can see the rockets coming in. The Hellstorm rocket battery here, I've said it before, its damage is really mostly against lower armor targets. It can wreck lower armor targets like Bretonnian infantry, Imperial infantry for the most part. It can destroy them really well. It still will do damage, but I think here it's a lot of money that's kind of wasted against dwarven armies. It's not going to reach its full potential anyway. But they are going to hound us with some rockets here. It did some damage. It's okay. Our cannons right now are, well, I think Surreal's is going to be focused on the Sunmaker. I am going to be pulling off against the Great Cannons here shortly. I do, I think, 2 salvos against this Hellstorm rocket battery. That's just kind of been put out there in the middle of the field to die. We have a Bright Wizard and Karl Franz coming over here to just annoy our armies. My Thunderers are the only thing that's going to really reliably hit them, but they are currently in this forest because I wanted to protect against these Reichsguard, which are now charging in, but I was still getting my army into position in this forest. We are going to get a shot off here. I'm trying to pull my Slayers up here as well, which are back there. So yeah, we are going to get a couple shots off, but they are going to charge into our Thunderers. I'm trying to get some Longbeards and Miners up here as well. Luckily, in the forest, the Reichsguard are not as powerful, and then the enemy is going to halt the charge there, seeing that we have Slayers and everything coming up, and they are going to try and run around me and get towards our cannons, where we do have a couple Longbeards nearby. You can see the Bright Wizard over here casting some spells against the cannon. A bombardment spell, though, against the cannon, I think it's kind of a waste. Like, dwarves have an innate magic resistance, and then there's not enough clumped units here for the bombardment spell to really be worth it. But over here, the gyrocopter, the brimstone guns, are now being taken out in melee by Karl Franz, who is excellent at murdering gyrocopters, let me tell you. He is really good. Actually, he's really good at murdering a lot of things. Right now, that renowned unit is routing, but they will come back, and we are trying to get into position to try and start firing at the 4 great cannons that the Empire enemy has. And here comes those Reichsguard. I'm trying to get my Slayers. I think I moved them here soon, but they are going to get a charge on our cannons. Oh yeah, right here, I'm sorry. I was not firing at the great cannons because I was trying to shoot at Karl Franz, who was just standing still, hitting the gyrocopters, but now you can see he's running them off the field. Wanted to try and get some damage in on Karl Franz when I could, and then here comes the Reichsguard. And they have a really good angle of getting in here because they're coming in from the side. Although, one of those Reichsguard just ate a cannonball to the face, which I did not notice when I was playing this. That's pretty good. So right now we're just kind of chasing them, trying to tie them down, and he's just going through Surreal's cannons at this point, who he is bringing up his Slayers, but they are going to be marching out of here before we can get too much damage done to them. But you can see the charge, while it looks impressive, they weren't really standing still long enough to actually do a lot of really good damage. So the Dwarven cannons are relatively unfazed. This Hellstorm rocket battery, though, doesn't really do much. There goes a Flaming Skull, apparently, cast. Looks like they were aiming for the Longbeards, but the Longbeards are being pulled out, so that's kind of a waste of magic there. We get a couple shots on Karl Franz, but nothing really worthwhile. Right here, another bombardment spell. Yeah. Don't use your bombardment spells on the cannon. Like, I know the cannons are a high threat, so you should try and take them out. It's a good charge with the Reiksguard, but don't put your Winds of Magic to try and take them out like that. Now, if you cast it right here, it would have done more damage. Or if the enemy player would have. So here, I'm going to pull our forces back into the forest, because when our Thunderers came out to shoot at the Reiksguard, the Great Cannon started to open fire, and you can see that they have taken out a lot of my Thunderers already in a very short amount of time. So now we are going to continue our skirmishing war, bring up our cannons again, and we are going to start trying to pound the artillery position of the Imperial players here. The Hellstorm rocket battery is mostly out of ammunition at this point, so we're not really too concerned with it, and it really hasn't made that much of an impact on this Dwarven army. And I think right here they're going to try and attack our cannons. So there you go. Again, didn't really do too much. These great cannons, though, man, it's going to be a tough fight. Tough fight. The thing is, against two Imperial players, it's pretty certain that they're going to be bringing artillery. I didn't know they're going to be bringing 4 great cannons, which is a lot. Usually I see maybe 3. But, since we're dwarves, now most of the time me and Surreal do, I'll just press play, do charge against enemy players who are more defensively focused, but we're dwarves, you know, like dwarves are not really made to run across an open field trying to get towards Imperial artillery that is protected by greatswords. So in this case, we were like, well, let's just double down on artillery and see maybe we can destroy their guns before they destroy ours, and then they're going to be forced to engage us, where we can choose the field of battle. Like right here, seeing the Reiksguard and seeing these cannons, that's why I have my army in here, so that they can hide from the cannons, and if we do get charged, it's not going to be as impactful because we are in the forest, so I kind of want to make sure that the fight takes place right here, if at all possible. So this is just going to be kind of a little long skirmish between our cannons and theirs. You can see we're doing some damage. They're doing a lot of damage to mine. And just going to be an exchange of fire. Surreal's army is going to be back here. I have some Longbeards back here. And then the Reiksguard are going to come back in, I think, pretty soon. Until then, we can just watch cannons being fired. You can see the Great Cannons have taken out some of my artillery here. I think Surreal's, for the most part, is untouched. Yeah, they haven't focused him down yet. Right here, my Runesmith is casting the damage resistance buff to try and make sure that our crews do not die. I'm moving my Thunderers to the edge of the forest here to get some shots in on these Reiksguard because they are going to be charging our cannons, so I wanted to try and cover them with the crossfire here. Well, not crossfire, but just fire. And I'm getting my Slayers out here to try and pin them down because I know where they're going. So you can see our Thunderers laying down some fire there. They didn't know that I was ready, so you can see these Reiksguard take a lot of damage. We are putting another buff to our cannon crews to try and resist the damage done. And from this one, they're actually going to charge from the front so that a lot of them get caught up on the cannons. And then our Slayers are going to get into them. And Slayers are really good at murdering Cav as long as they don't get charged by the Cav. So in this situation, we're going to do some decent damage as they try to pull out, I think because they are routing. Then this group is going to run into Surreal Slayers, and they too are going to mostly die. The Slayers were ready this time. The Great Cannon, meanwhile, have obliterated all 4 of my cannon for this crew right here. They destroyed 2 here, and then I think 2 here. So I do not have many cannons left. The enemy still has 3 fresh ones. This one is mostly taken out. But luckily for us, Surreal also still has all of his cannons up. So it's not a big loss, because again, we doubled down on the artillery. Surreal Slayers get a little crazy and chase the Reiksguard kind of far, but then they're going to get pulled back.
Nothing can stop us.
And right now we see no reason to charge, because again we're dwarves, and that's silly in most cases. And technically we do have the cannon advantage, because Surreal's cannons, actually, they have taken some hit point damage, but I think the actual cannons are all still intact. Yeah, so he still has all 12 of his cannons. And we have 2 Master Engineers that are buffing these cannons up with the ballistics calibration. So you can see, now I guess the enemy thought that we had the advantage in the cannons, so they are going to charge across the field. We do not currently see these 2 units because they have Stalk, the Silver Bullets, and the Free Company. Can't see them. We do see the Reichsguard. We can clearly see the Great Swords that are coming. So reacting to this, I'm going to throw our Thunderers right here at the edge of the forest so they can get some shots in as the Great Swords come in. Right now, my cannons, though, for the most part, are still firing at the enemy's Great Cannons. Here comes another Bright Wizard spell. This one isn't even really targeted on any units except for my Runesmith, which is a total waste of a Bombard spell. But that's okay. Enemy Great Cannon still coming in. And then it's here, I believe, we start to see... Where are they? They haven't moved out yet, but again, we have no idea that there are 6 Blazing Sun Knights just hiding in the forest. But then they just start coming out pretty soon. Here is the Silver Bullets, or I'm sorry, Sterling's Revenge, the Free Company Militia. And the thing is, Surreal doesn't have any ranged units besides the cannons, and my ranged units, I don't really want to pull out, because as soon as I pulled them out of the forest last time, those Great Cannons almost murdered an entire group. So I could pull the Thunderers out to try and take out the Sterling's Revenge Company, but instead, I'm just going to let them fire into Surreal's lines, and I'm going to wait for the Great Swords to come back. Because honestly, I'm more worried about these Great Swords than I am about the Free Company Militia group. So Surreal is just going to take some fire here. Luckily, the Longbeards do have shields. They can block it. It is possible. You can see the Great Swords are coming in, and then the Blazing Sun Knights are going to be marching as well. Now we're like, oh my god, look at all that cav they have. And here we go, the Thunderers are laying down some fire against these Great Swords. You can see they're doing a lot of damage already. We're getting Miners nearby to intercept their charge. I have my Hammerers nearby to fight them. Basically, my whole army is nearby over there. But I do have some Longbeards over here as well. Master Engineer is currently firing at the Great Swords. That's a very scary army. Ironbreaker's throwing out the satchel charges. And here comes the charge. Also, there's the Blazing Sun Knight charge too. The thing is, though, they all come in charging at the same time. And then they're going to kind of just go through my Longbeards here. And then I think they eventually head over to Surreal's part of the fight. I'm bringing over my Master Engineer to take some shots. My Runesmith is nearby. My Thunderers are being pulled back over here. And for some reason, I found this out on a couple maps. Some maps just give me like frame rate issues. I'm noticing a frame rate here, like a drop, which is really weird. This map, and then like there's one other map with a giant skull on it. I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember what it's called. But for some reason, certain maps just give me frame drops. It's really weird. Anyway, I wanted to address that because I'm sure it's going to look framey in the video. I don't know. Weird. Anyway, pulling some Thunderers back here to try and get some shots on these Blazing Sun Knights while my Longbeards just kind of get destroyed by a whole bunch of Blazing Sun Knights. Surreal's army is now in the mix. What's really weird is that the actual battle itself was not even laggy at all. That's really weird. Only the replay is. Anyway, Karl Franz is up here leading his Great Swords against the Longbeard line. Great Swords is going to do pretty well against the Longbeards. Not as well against Ironbreakers, but they are still the best infantry that the Empire has to deal with Ironbreakers. Oh, Karl. You don't really ever see Karl Franz unmounted. Anyway, for the Blazing Sun Knights, they have now dealt with my one Longbeard group, so they are now starting to filter into Surreal's right flank over here with Thorgrim Grungebearer, the Longbeards, and the Slayers are waiting for them. My Slayers are... Where are my Slayers? They're still in the forest, but I'm going to be pulling them out soon. Oh, right. I'm sorry. I totally missed this. Karl Franz charged into my Thunderer line, so I then overwhelmed him with my Slayers, and they almost murdered him. Unfortunately, he was able to get away, so he is going to come back to the fight, but that's what my Slayers were doing. And now I'm going to pull them out of the forest and try and deal with these Blazing Sun Knights, because I know that the rest of my army over here can deal with these great swords, so my Slayers are not really needed. But Surreal is going to need some assistance. There are just so many Knights, and his Slayers have already taken a lot of damage at this point. Not many Slayers left. Their great cannons, I think, are almost out of ammunition. Some of them are, anyway. Where are my Slayers at? There they come. They're finally coming out of the forest. This entire time we've been shooting this position with the Thunderers. We're going to be able to wrap up the couple Greyswords that came to engage me pretty easily. The enemy Karl Franz that was mounted comes over here to try and take out Thorgrim, along with all of these Blazing Sun Knights. So it looks like they're just trying to murder our leadership right now. Maybe give us a morale shock and try and break us, because their infantry is currently being destroyed by ours. Just look at poor Thorgrim, man. He is just surrounded by these Blazing Sun Knights. I think the enemy just mass right-clicked Thorgrim with all the Blazing Sun Knights. But anyway, here come my Slayers pouring in. And again, since the Slayers are not charged, they can do really well against Cav, even heavily armored Cav, just because of how much damage they do. So they're going to start chewing through these Blazing Sun Knights over here. Meanwhile, the rest of my army is still dealing with a couple Greysword units. You can see one Longbeard group has held off two Greyswords who are being supported by the Thunderers. I'm getting this one into a better position to fire at the Greyswords. My Master Engineers dropping the Ballistics Calibration to get the Thunderers to fire faster. I think that's it right there. And they're going to just murder these Greyswords. Thorgrim is totally surrounded and dying to Karl Franz, but our Slayers are nearby. And we are going to try and kill Karl along with the Blazing Sun Knights. And try and free Thorgrim Grudgebearer before he dies. And there we go. The Slayers finished the job they started in the forest, and now they are going to continue working on the Blazing Sun Knights. Thorgrim is holding on by a thread. He is so close to death, but now these Knights are mostly surrounded and being torn to pieces, because the Knights are meant for cycle charging. These, even more than the Reichsguard. At least the Reichsguard have 120 armor, so they can stay in a melee for a little bit longer than the Blazing Sun Knights. But in any case, you should be cycle charging your Knights and not just sitting there trying to murder a hero with all of them. And that's what this player did, so they got surrounded and murdered by a whole bunch of Dwarven infantry. And with the loss of Karl Franz, and the other Karl Franz, I think, also died at this point, the unmounted one. Oh, no, he's over here. I'm sorry, he is currently dying and also routing. But due to losses that they have faced and Karl dying, that kind of sent a morale shock through the rest of the army, and they are going to break. Good game to my opponent, Sensu Surreal. Apologies for the choppiness here. Again, it's really weird. During the actual battle, there was zero choppiness, but in replays, I experienced them again on this map and one other, which I can't remember the name. But that was a good fight. It was a good fight. The charge of the Blazing Sun Knights coming out of the forest kind of really... what's the one I'm looking for? Shocked us, and then we were also really afraid because we're like, holy crap, that is a lot of cav. That's 6 Blazing Sun Knights just charging across the field. But luckily for us, the player just kind of mobbed them up in one group and tried to murder Thorgrim. If they had spread those units out, those 6 Blazing Sun Knights, and came in behind the... man, our army could have been wrecked pretty easily, I think. But, maybe not easily, but we probably would have lost, I think, if those Blazing Sun Knights were used more of like a hammer and anvil. Anyway, let's take a look at the kill count. For me, I did bring... I always forget to mention this, but whenever I bring a generic Dwarf Lord, I usually bring the Ring of... what's it? Ring of Igni Is that what it's called? It's the thing that gives him basically a fire breath weapon every once in a while. I did bring that. I cast it on some great swords a couple times, but I never show it, but I did bring it. The Runesmith did what a Runesmith does. They buff a lot of people. I didn't really send them into combat. The Thane was fighting off some great swords there, but he doesn't look like he got any kills. Master Engineer, 37 kills is amazing. I think is amazing. He murdered a bunch of great swords and a couple Reichsguard, I think. Miners with blasting charges, not bad considering they were fighting against great swords. The Longbeards held the line for a while. Slayers, I think, did pretty okay. Hammers did excellent, as they're going to do against great swords. They kind of counter each other, actually, great swords and hammers, but I think hammers are still a lot better than great swords. Thunderers did really well, and then the cannons did... they did all right. For my friend here, Surreal, Thorgrim, 34 kills, which is pretty good. Runesmith, his Runesmith saw some action. His Master Engineer did as well. The Great Weapon Dwarf Warriors was a good call here. They have the armor piercing needed to go through the Great Sword's armor, so that was a good call. You don't see these units often, and I don't really bring them either. I probably should. Longbeards held the line really well. His Slayers did amazing. His cannons did really well. Looks like they were shut down there at the end by the charge, but that's still fine. They still got a lot of kills. And the Ironbreakers, half dead, 41 kills, but they were fighting Great Swordsmen, which Great Swords chew through armor like paper for the most part, but they still did really well. Gyrocopter, though, got routed off the field by Karl Franz, but what are you going to do? It's Karl Franz mounted. Like, Gyrocopters have no chance they get caught. Speaking of, Karl Franz, 24 kills, 2 on the Bright Wizard, 10 on the Sterling's Revenge, not that much. 9 on the Silver Bullets, also not that much. Probably because they didn't have much of a line of sight. I didn't really check, but they came in behind the Great Swords, and their angle of attack was also uphill. So they had an uphill angle, I think it was like a slight uphill, and they were looking into the backs of the Great Swords. So they probably didn't even really get many opportunities to fire at all, just because of line of sight issues. So they were kind of wasted there. Also, I wouldn't bring Silver Bullets against dwarves. There's not much of a reason, really. The Blazing Sun Knights, even though they went in as a mob, they still racked up a lot of kills in such a short time. Like, I am honestly shocked that just mass selecting and just right-clicking a group that they did this well. They each got so many kills in such a short amount of time. Very surprising. And again, which is why I think if they were used in a more spread out fashion to hammer each part of our line at the same time, they probably could have turned the tide of the battle. Like, I really think they could have. Because look at these kills! They were in the fight for like a minute! And they were just in a massive clump of knights, and they still managed. It's insane to me. They did really good. The Sunmaker did 15 kills. This isn't really the type of army that it's suitable to fight. It can still do damage, though. Still do damage, just not, again, it doesn't shine. The Unmounted Karl Franz, 61 kills. Good God, good for you, Karl. The Greatsword line did pretty good across the board. It was a good call to bring a bunch of great swords against 2 dwarven players. Like, that's totally cool. Reichsguard kind of got shut down on their second charge. We were more prepared for the second one, and we murdered them there. The Great Cannons did amazing. We tried to shut them down with overwhelming cannons, but even still, they did really well. Great Cannons for the Empire are pretty good, especially against dwarf players who don't really have much of a way to threaten them. We don't have, like, Cav to go in back there. We could send in Gyrocopters, but a flying Karl Franz, just one of them, just totally negates any kind of Gyrocopters you buy. It just negates it, because he's really good. It's like a flying King Leon Kerr. Lewin Leon Kerr. Whatever. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the battle, everybody. I will see you all next time. Good game against my opponents and to Surreal.